435 representatives from throughout the United States make up the House of Representatives. This election, one of those seats, the one representing the largest area of Oregon's 5 districts, is up for grabs. Eastern Oregon represents some of the most scenic, diverse landscapes in the country, and its citizens who are proud to call it home. Tonight, EO Alive TV and the 8 newspapers of EO Media Group present a chance to get to know those candidates better. For them, the race has just begun. Webcasting live from Brent Clapp Studios in La Grande, Oregon, here's tonight's moderators, Chris Rush and Corinne Berjotti.
Thank you. I'm Chris Rush, Regional Publisher for EO Media Group, based in Pendleton.
And I'm Corinne Berjotti, Publisher of the La Grande Observer, Baker City Herald, and Regional Sales Director for the EO Media Group. I'm glad to be here tonight with you, Chris.
Likewise. In the first two forums tonight, we welcome 3 of the Republican candidates for Oregon's 2nd Congressional District seat in Congress. In the next forum, later this evening, we'll meet 4 more of the Republican candidates.
And due to the large number of candidates, we've divided them into 2 groups tonight. There are actually 11 Republican candidates for this position, but just 7 have agreed to be with us on these forums tonight.
And all are vying to replace Congressman Greg Walden as he vacates his seat. So we're happy to have everyone with us tonight. Before we get started, I'd like to go over the format of the forum. First of all, this is not a debate, so candidates should address their answers to the audience, not to each other. Each candidate will be asked the same set of questions and will have the same amount of time to answer each question. You will hear a tone like this when your time is up, and so please finish your sentence at that point before we mute your audio.
Our questions were developed by EO Media Group editors from all 8 of our group's newspapers in the 2nd District, from Wallowa County to Bend, and many in between. The questions are meant to highlight relevant issues that are important to residents in the district, which covers all of Eastern and Central Oregon and some of Southern Oregon as well.
It's a huge district geographically speaking, larger than some states, with a mostly rural population of about 800,000 people. Time permitting, we hope to get some questions submitted by our readers via email and Facebook Live as well.
Before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge the generous support that we've received from CHI St. Anthony Hospital of Pendleton and PacWest Communications for tonight's forums.
Yes, putting on a live virtual forum like this is new to us. In the past, our company's newspapers would meet with candidates individually in editorial board meetings, and we would host in-person candidate forums in each community. But now with the threat of COVID-19 and social distancing rules making these types of meetings and gatherings impossible, we've embraced the technology to allow us to hold these virtual forums. And we hope we can reach just as many folks, if not more, potential voters in this format as we did previously.
The partnership with EO Alive TV was essential in making these forums a reality. So many thanks to Brent Clapp and to his team.
Okay, we're ready to get started then. Corinne and I will take turns asking questions of the candidates, and we'll let you know the order in which the candidates will answer, which will change with each question. We've used an online randomizer to determine the order in which each question will be answered. So we'll begin with opening statements. Please tell us about yourself and why you are running. You each have 2 minutes, and the order will be Fager, Smith, and Livingston. So Mr. Fager, please.
Hey, thanks for having me this evening, and Corinne and Chris and everyone out there listening. Why am I running? Well, I think what's become very apparent recently is Congress needs to be stacked full of people who look after the country like the board of directors. They're held accountable and are doing a good job and want to make sure our freedoms are solvent, that financially we're solvent, and strategically we're solvent. So I've been concerned with this as a voter and as a citizen for quite a while. And, you know, we have 11 people in this race. I'm the 11th man in the 11th hour, so you can thank me for adding to that number. But you know what? It's encouraging because we need more people jumping in. Liberty and our freedoms, it's not a spectator sport. This constitutional republic that we're in is not a spectator sport. And I'm getting into it because I want to be part of the conversation. And I'm really convicted that who we send to Congress is going to dictate the outcome of this nation, where we're heading. I don't like the trajectory of this nation. I'm very concerned with that. I think we're trending away from liberties. And again, I think Congress has been stacked full of people who have made a career of it and have been self-serving. I don't believe that they're serving the interests of the American people. And District 2 has a lot of issues. District 2 has a lot of potential, and I'm excited for what we can do. Raised out here on a ranch, been in Oregon for 45 plus years. I was a hotshot firefighter for a year. I put myself through college with construction, again, raised on a farm. I know the ag background, very sensitive to that space, and I want to help out the ag producers. Went to Portland, Oregon for 5 years, was in project management, legal services, data processing, and I feel like we could have got our checks out quicker to the unemployed people right now that have been iced, unfortunately, by Governor Brown. I went into national sales and distribution, moved back out here to District 2 in La Grande, and it was my bedroom community for over a decade where I flew around the country doing sales and distribution and product development and logistics, where I got exposed to bringing product in from China. So I know a little bit about the China game and why we're in the pickle we're in right now. It's unacceptable. Another example of bad management at the level of Congress and the executive level of this country, legislative. So anyway, married with 3 kids and happy to be part of this debate tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Fager. All right, now to Mr. Smith.
Thank you so much for our host working so hard to put this all together.
Okay.
And I just wanted to verse in my life, 2 miles north of Elgin. Then I moved to Klamath Falls, went to Oregon.
Okay, it looks like we're having some technical difficulties with Jeff right now. There have been some thunderstorms and some wind here locally, and I think that Jeff's in Elgin. So we're going to be trying to figure out how we can troubleshoot this. I wonder if we should go ahead and go to Justin. Yeah, let's go ahead and go to Justin.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi.
Good evening. Thank you to EO Media Group. All their newspapers and EO Live TV for hosting this forum. I look forward to the opportunity to let everyone know more about me and why I'm running to replace Congressman Walden. I'm a native Oregonian, a small business owner, managing principal real estate broker, and Bend City Councilor. My wife Carrie and I recently celebrated our 19th wedding anniversary. We also have 2 amazing kids, a son that's 10 years old and a daughter that's 13. I'm running for Congress because I'm tired of federal government overreach and excessive regulations. Whether it's Forest Service policies that choke our skies in the summer with smoke from wildfires, or regulations that increase the cost of doing business like Obamacare, or federal permits local governments have to pay just to maintain their infrastructure, like the $500,000 of permits the city of Bend had to pay to the federal government just to repair an existing sewer line. That was a direct tax to sewer ratepayers. It's time to send someone to Washington, D.C. that is a true, principled conservative. After tonight, it will be evident that I am that person. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Okay, we're going to try to go back to Mr. Smith now. Let's see if we've been able to resolve the technical issues. Mr. Smith.
Hi. My name is Jeff Smith. I want to thank our hosts that put this together and all their hard work to go into putting this together for us tonight. And I also want to thank the voters, the people who are watching tonight and just trying to consider who they will vote for and what agendas best suit their needs. There's two things that I want to do tonight. The first is I want to inspire hope in you that we really can rebuild the middle class in Eastern, Central, and Southern Oregon. And secondly, I want to convince you that the agenda that I'm laying out is the agenda that will best bring back the middle class in Eastern Oregon. I grew up in Eastern Oregon. I grew up 2 miles north of Elgin. I was raised on a cattle ranch. After graduating from Elgin High School, I went to Oregon Institute of Technology in Klamath Falls. After graduating there, I've spent my major part of my adult life in the aerospace industry. I have seen a lot of things. I have done a lot of stuff, and I have come to realize that there are things that are holding back, that are affecting virtually everybody in Eastern Oregon. For instance, the high cost of medical care. People are suffering from having more and more of their paycheck go just to pay the premium for their health insurance, pay their doctor bills, pay their prescription drug bills. The cost of our medical care is going up at twice the rate of inflation, and we need to do something about that. It is something that affects everyone, and the reason why that is they are going up so much is because we have too few of doctors.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm glad that we were able to get you back on the line. So our second question tonight is, what are your top 3 priorities for Oregon's 2nd Congressional District? You each have 90 seconds to respond, and the order will be Smith, Livingston, and Fager. Jeff, you want to go ahead and start?
Yes. So, as I was saying, my number one issue is reducing the cost of healthcare. We have way too few of doctors, nurses, and healthcare providers. In Oregon, there is only one place that you can become a medical doctor, OHSU in Portland. We need to be having more universities producing doctors, and we also ought to be graduating at least 3 times the number of doctors that we currently are. Same with nurses and other healthcare providers. The reason why our healthcare costs keep going up and up at twice the rate of inflation is because there are just too few of providers, and there's too much demand for their services. Secondly, Social Security and Medicare are going to be out of money within 11 years for both programs. We need to take steps now to protect both of those programs. If we move now, we won't need to take draconian steps to protect Social Security and Medicare. On top of that, I grew up in Elgin. Elgin used to be a logging town. Now it is no longer a logging town. The reason is because of the northern spotted owl. We need to revoke the Endangered Species Act and start logging again.
Great, thank you, Jeff. We're going to throw the question now to Justin Livingston. Justin.
Thank you. This question, or the answer to this question, would be a lot different 6 weeks ago. The number one priority is rebuilding, getting America back open and rebuilding the economy. That is by far the top priority at this point. One of the ways you can do that, and so to me, the second priority would be reducing regulations. The federal government has too many regulations, and we need to continue to do that. The president has done a good job reducing a fair amount of those regulations with kind of his rule of you have to get rid of 2 before you can get another one. And so I think that's been a good start, but we put too many regulations on small businesses, banks, a lot of different industries, healthcare industry. The regulations are too big or too many, and what it does is it consolidates into those industries into bigger and larger entities, and it really drives out the small person out of those industries. The third priority for me would be forest management. We need to manage our forests better to reduce the risk of wildfire, we need to address ladder fuel issues. We need to get in and start doing the density of the forests are too much. We need to really get in and start cutting the forest and get really people back to working in the woods, and then not only just working in the woods but also in the mills. And we need to have more guaranteed revenue or commitments for logging for those providers.
Thank you, Justin. Travis Fager.
First of all, obviously, just echoing everything they said. I mean, those are good housekeeping realities that have been overlooked or underserved in our district. You know, we got to make District 2 a habitat for business. We got to make District 2 a habitat for people who want to work and earn and save and have their money at the end of the day. You know, and also too, it's important that as we're in this candidate process, we want a candidate that's fluent in middle class reality. You know, having to sit down and cut a check for $1,200 for healthcare insurance that doesn't cover everything. That at the end of the day, if you have an issue, small or large, you're still going to get invoiced separately from clinics, laboratories, and doctors and hospitals and so forth. So the healthcare we have in District 2 and of course all over the nation is terrible. It's terrible. It needs to be addressed. Yes, again, we need to have a healthy harvest plan for the forest. I was a firefighter. I fought down there and all through the district, down on the Klamath Falls fire, down in near Sisters and Bend. So I know what it's like to stand on the fire line and put your life between the flames and the resources. We can do a much better job. It comes down to management again. You got to have the headspace for business. You got to be strategically minded. And the product we have right now is an example of bad strategic management. So the question is, who are we sending to Washington, D.C. to represent us? And lately, it doesn't seem like we're getting a really good product. And look, we got to hand this thing. We got a good stewardship now we're responsible for, and we need to hand this off to the generations that are coming behind us. So coming back to it full circle, I'm out of time. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Fager. Now we go into the first of three COVID-related questions. One will be about the healthcare system. The other is about economic crisis, and another will be about how we balance those two things. So this first COVID-related question is, COVID-19 has been a tremendous healthcare challenge facing our district and our nation. What changes do you want to see in the nation's healthcare system as a result of this pandemic? You each have 2 minutes to respond, and the order will be Fager, Livingston, and Smith. So Mr. Fager, please.
Well, first of all, shout out, of course, to the first responders. They're on the front line of this thing. The opinions on this vary, the numbers on this vary, but at the end of the day, again, strategic planning and so forth. Out of the gate, it was really obvious we didn't have the ventilators for the models that were projecting the amount of illnesses and instances where people need respiratory care. So, strategically looking at this, pandemics come and go. Hospitals, of course, we're in an era where accountants say you shouldn't have cash sitting around, and the accountants say you shouldn't have certain resources and assets sitting around if they're not mission critical or needed. Well, we found out that we needed to have extra room and extra capacity for respiratory care as a result of this COVID thing. So I think, from a top policy level, we need to make sure hospitals and responding institutions have contingencies developed and contingency plans for a ramp up of these kind of healthcare needs that come up periodically. I think Trump has done a fantastic job, and hats off again to everybody. And looking back at, the changes going forward, I think in some instances, we over responded. I don't think we should put the economy in a full naked chokehold and cut off people's living and cash flow. So I think there needs to be a balanced protocol in place to appropriately deal with a ramp up of healthcare need without ramping down and killing our economy. Didn't use all my time.
Very efficient. Thank you, Mr. Fager. Now to Mr. Livingston.
Great, thank you. The United States has a world-class healthcare system. COVID-19 has definitely tested the limits and the capacities of certain aspects of the system, particularly in the larger cities. I think largely in the district, the healthcare system, the hospitals have had capacity. Really where we fall down and where the real issues, and I think this was regardless of COVID-19, change needed to happen. We don't have a very good health insurance system. We really don't have a health insurance system. We have prepaid medicine. The way I would want to see changes in that system is to really move away from an employer-based providing the health insurance to more personal type policies. What I also want to do is reduce or eliminate the federal mandates on health insurance and let the states decide that. What do the citizens of the state, what do the mandates of the citizens in each state really want to see in their health insurance policies? The other thing I would do is, have guaranteed renewability. So if you have a policy, that policy should be able to renew year after year. I personally get my health insurance as a self-employed person and an independent contractor. I get my health insurance on the private market. There hasn't been a year since Obamacare has passed that I've actually had the same provider or policy since that began. The other thing that I would do is allow people to shop across state lines. There's a lot of things we shop for across state lines, and health insurance should be one of those. So if you have a state that has heavy mandates and high premiums, you should be able to go to a different state and look at those and buy a policy out of that state. The other thing that really is a healthcare cost driver is we really need to look at the regulations that we impose on healthcare providers and reduce those so we can reduce the healthcare cost drivers.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Mr. Smith.
When we look back on this time in history, there's going to be two things that are very obvious. What has become very evident is our overdependence upon China. Let me flesh out both issues. First of all, the overreaction, we look back now and we see that Sweden actually did not have a total shutdown of its country, and their outcomes were very good. They had numbers that were, if not better than ours. It's still up in the air about what the final numbers will be. But it's become evident that our government has been completely, and we have trampled upon people's civil liberties in the process. Secondly, China is the culprit in this, and we ought to take drastic steps to remedy that. We found out that most of our PPE is manufactured in China. We found out that a lot of our vaccines are manufactured in China. A lot of our medicines are manufactured in China. A lot of our medical equipment is manufactured in China. That is a direct result of government policies. We need to change those policies so that businesses are incentivized to make things in the United States. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. We actually were going to give you an additional 10 seconds because we had some audio problems, but thank you for tying that up. And I want to thank everybody for their responses, and to thank everybody at home who's watching via their newspaper's website or their Facebook pages. We have a viewer watching right now. Jerry Isom is watching from the Wallowa County Chieftains Facebook page. So thank you for tuning in tonight, Jerry. I think now, Chris, we're going to take a quick break. So we'd like to hear from our sponsor, CHI St. Anthony Hospital of Pendleton.
One afternoon at home, Mom was starting to feel a lot of tightness in her chest pains, and she also couldn't breathe. In fact, she was gasping for breath.
I was at the point where I thought I was dying.
So I called a friend who works here at St. Anthony, and she said, "You need to bring her in right away."
I was frantic. I just knew I wasn't going to make it. I was in the hospital for 6 days and had very, very good treatment the whole time. I'm very happy to St. Anthony's.
I came in feeling one way, terrified, and not knowing what to do, and leaving feeling very confident and grateful to all the staff and the doctor and everybody. It was a very positive experience, and that was thanks to St. Anthony.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Corinne Bergiotti. I'm here with Chris Rush. We're here with 3 of the 11 Republican candidates for U.S. Congress, Travis Fager, Jeff Smith, and Justin Livingston. After this, a second forum of the night will include 4 more of the Republican candidates, Jason Atkinson, Newt Bueller, Jimmy Crumpacker, and Cliff Betts. So be sure to catch that forum as well. We're going to move along to our 4th question of the night, which addresses some of our readers' concerns about the national debt. If you're elected, how would you approach helping the nation recover from the economic crisis resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic? And how do you balance the federal government's need to stimulate the economy with concerns about increasing our federal deficit? You each have 2 minutes to respond in this order: Livingston, Fager, and Smith. Mr. Livingston, you can start.
To me, that really is the question of the day: is how do we transition from what we currently are, essentially shut down, back into a healthy economy like it was 30 days ago, 45 days ago. I will note that I'm the only person in this group or in the next group that actually is an elected official and who is making decisions on how we're going to open up our area. It really is important. I think really number one, we have to look at public safety, but we do need to balance public safety with the needs, the economic needs, and the other things that we're not having because of the shutdown. And what are the ramifications? Domestic violence is up, suicides are up. There's other things that are really impactful, other health issues that people aren't able to be helped with, or procedures that they really do need that they're not getting because of this shutdown. As far as the economy goes, we need to support businesses. I think we need to look at reducing regulations to get businesses back up and open. We need to look at liability and addressing liability concerns due to COVID-19 that businesses might have. I have real hesitation on doing much more federal spending. Unfortunately, over the decades, we've far outspent what we should have been doing. And so we have a large national debt. Unfortunately, we didn't keep that national credit card to the side for real emergencies like we're experiencing today. And I'm just have a lot of concern over continuing to rise the national debt to the degree that we are, and potentially what Congress is looking at. What we don't want to do is just push off further economic issues into the future where we have rampant inflation. So we need to balance all of that, and those policies need to be worked out.
Great. Thank you very much, Justin. Travis, you're next.
Right out of the gate, President Trump was doing a phenomenal job. So right out of the gate, if elected to Congress, I'm going to support what he's doing. Get behind it. I mean, the man is a businessman. He has a business head, something that's been we haven't had that in Washington, D.C. at many levels. So get behind him, support him. The double-edged sword with the American consumer is the minute they go back to work, they're going to start spending the money as soon as it hits their hands. So they don't necessarily save, which puts people in a pinch when cash flow is stopped. But the positive side for in the economic space, commerce space, is they'll start spending. So I think it's good that we have a mindset now that we need to bring manufacturing back to the United States. That's going to help jobs here, help companies here, keep cash stateside. And again, do everything to make it a habitat for business in the United States. Get cash flow moving. Yes, I agree. We need to limit regulation and so forth. But again, I think Trump is doing a phenomenal job. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. We were breaking records before the economy got broken by the policy we instituted with COVID-19. So again, just get behind him and continue what we were doing. I'm a business guy. And I think we need more people with a business mindset in Congress. Now, regarding the debt, yeah, we're spending like drunk sailors. That has got to stop. That formula will not carry. That's a greater vulnerability than most people understand. So we're going to have to tighten our belts. We're going to have to reduce spending, and we're going to have to use better stewardship with the money that's coming in. So we do have to service that debt. It's a huge issue, and I don't think anybody really has a plan to get their arms around it, but we better have in mind that it's time to get our arms around it and work together and come up with a strategy. But it's going to take some sacrifice and discipline at all levels from all camps to make that a reality for this country.
Great. Thank you, Travis. Jeff Smith, you're up.
So government will has caused this problem. They ought to be part of the solution. And I totally agree with President Trump's reaching out to small businesses, trying to get them resources. I completely agree with helping people who were just completely blindsided by the reaction of our government of shutting everything down. Regarding the overspending by Congress, the Congressional Budget Office has said repeatedly that the course that we are on with the huge deficits is simply unsustainable. We have to get spending under control. So far, our government has had no backbone in that, as far as both Republicans and Democrats are more than happy to spend too much money. I think we need a constitutional amendment, and that constitutional amendment would do only one thing. It would say Congress must pass a balanced budget every year except for in the time of war. And if they don't balance that budget, then everybody who voted for an unbalanced budget is no longer eligible either for the Senate or the U.S. House of Representatives. We make the problem Congress, because Congress is the problem. We need to have this constitutional amendment, and we set it up so there won't be a constitutional crisis if you don't balance the budget. We'll just recycle the people in Congress who weren't willing to live within their means. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. This is our third and final COVID-related question. And the question is, if elected, what would your approach be to balance economic recovery efforts with the social distancing measures that have been implemented to slow the spread of COVID-19? You have 90 seconds each to respond, and with the order will be Smith, Livingston, and Fager. So we'll go to Mr. Smith first.
The social distancing has been a complete overreaction. If you are a healthy young person, you have virtually zero chance of dying from COVID. If you are up to a middle-aged person with no underlying health issues, you have a very, very small chance of dying from COVID. The government overreaction has been a complete overreaction, and that has been borne out more and more by all of the studies that they're doing, and finding that, one, way more people were infected with COVID than we knew about. And because of that, the death rate is much, much smaller than what the statistics are showing, because many more people were infected without us even knowing it. With the way that we are right now, we need to make sure that government is held in check so that our civil liberties, namely our freedom of speech, our freedom to assemble peaceably, these things have been trampled upon, and small businesses have had to pay the price. We need to get back to just realizing that government should be held in check by we the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Now we go to Mr. Livingston.
As I mentioned, I am a currently elected official and serving in the Bend City Council, and we're working through this right now. What does it look like to open back up the economy, to start opening up? Unfortunately, I think we've been too far to one side. Obviously, the Sweden model is too far to the other side, but I think there is a happy medium that can be found. And really, the people that are more susceptible to dying from this and having severe reactions to the virus and symptoms to the virus are the elderly and people with what are comorbidities. And those people we really do need to protect. We need to protect people that are in senior care facilities. We need to protect frontline workers. And so I think we do need to balance the need for economic activity and people's freedom with the health concerns, because there are other health concerns. COVID-19 isn't the only health concern out there. And like I mentioned before, we are putting people at risk of other health concerns because weren't deemed emergency type situations, even though they're not elective procedures like, say, plastic surgery per se, but they are procedures that they needed to get to. We do need to balance that, and I think before taking people's civil liberties or their private property rights away, the bar for that needs to be extremely high. And I think in the early days, with the information we had, I think it was probably right to do that, but we need to be very nimble and look at new data. The new data is coming out that COVID-19 is highly infectious, and people are getting it. But the good thing is, as we find out that more people have it,
thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Mr. Fager.
This is from both those guys. Bottom line, yes, the response has been excessive. And again, I believe the response has been excessive because we have leadership that's not fluent in economic entrepreneurial reality. Main Street America, middle class America. Again, I likened it to a chokehold. We've been thrown into a chokehold. People's cash flow, their livelihood, businesses are being lost. And I believe civil rights have been trampled on, constitutional rights. If what we're doing is not constitutionally correct, I call it constitutionally nutritious. There's been a lot of mal-constitution nutrition going on. Sorry for the wordplay there, but the reality of it is we need to be conscientious of what we're doing, that we protect people's income, that we do protect their rights, and we modify the plan. A lot of people are very angry because it feels like we haven't been modifying the plan. If anything, we've just been extending the lockdown, and people are upset, and they're not going to tolerate it. That's why they're taking to the streets. We had rallies yesterday, rallies today. I attended a rally. So going forward, if I'm placed in a position, elected to a position of power, we have to uphold the constitutional rights of the people, and we can't be fear averse. And for some reason, Americans are becoming risk averse and fear averse. And I think the medical complex would probably have advised against the revolution. And, sometimes you do have to assume a level of risk to assume a level of freedom. So it's time to replace the fear narrative with the courage narrative. And I believe that's part of the government's responsibility too, to encourage and be cheerleaders for their people. Here are the risks. Use wisdom, use common sense, but we trust you. We need trust put back in the people.
Thank you, Travis. So the next question, I believe, is probably one of the most important questions of the evening. The most effective legislators in Congress often accomplish their goals by working with members of the other political party. What issues are you willing to cross party lines to address? You each have 90 seconds in this order: Travis Fager, Jeff Smith, and Justin Livingston. Travis, go ahead.
Well, that's an interesting question when you say that, to cross party lines. In other words, where am I willing to compromise? I'm going to tell you, I feel like the conservative camp has been in the business of compromising for quite a while. And I feel like the compromise bucket is about empty. We're down to the last of our core values. I'm not going to give up on the Second Amendment. I'm not going to give up on pro-life. I'm not going to give up on pro-business, but I'll work with the other side. I mean, we can be creative. We can come up with solutions, and it's all going to be contingent upon the circumstance and the situation. And again, it has to pass the test. Is this constitutional? Does this provide a net benefit for the voters now and in the future? And I think, as evidence out there that we're living through right now, a lot of decisions, monetarily, fiscally, strategically, internationally, and so on and so forth, have not been made with the best counsel or the best intentions. And we find ourselves in a lot of fixes right now. So I would work and I would be cooperative, but I'm not going to be, there are non-negotiables that I feel like, again, the conservative camp, Republicans, conservatives have done a lot of compromising and don't have a lot left, a lot of currency left to use for, navigating issues and negotiating. So we got to be very careful with how we negotiate. So I would be very mindful of that. Again, I would be cooperative. You need to be able to manage people and process to get something done. And it is a space where we need to work together. So yes, I'd be willing to work together, but I'm very careful of what we give away in the process.
Great. Thanks, Travis. Jeff Smith, you're next.
So the question is what are you willing to compromise on? For me, I am a follower of Jesus Christ, and there are certain moral issues that I'm simply unwilling to compromise on. many of those things are hot button topics, abortion. I'm not going to support abortion. But the most powerful skill of leadership is listening. And I'm good at listening. And so I would use that skill of listening to people and coming to understand what their position is and why do they hold it. And because of that, people really will be willing to work with me much more than any of my other competitors, simply because I'm so good at listening to people. So what I'm suggesting is we not compromise on moral issues, but we do have an open playbook as far as for what we are willing to compromise on, as far as it's not moral, it's not violating the Constitution, or if that's not violating common sense, that some things, we simply shouldn't do, like the Green New Deal. I listen to people, and that, I think, is one of my strengths that will serve me well when I'm in Congress. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Justin, you're next.
Working with people and working with the other side of the aisle is very important in order to move policies forward that are good for everybody. On the Bend City Council, I currently am in and have been my entire tenure in a 4-3 minority. I've proven that I have the ability to work with others and work with the other side. I think some of the way that has actually played out, my colleagues have actually put me in positions of leadership, whether that's chair of the Metropolitan Planning Organization or chair of the Bend Urban Renewal Agency. They see my ability for leadership and to bring people together. The way I've approached my service on council is that I have a core set of principles that I don't violate, I don't compromise. But at the same time, I look for opportunities to work with other people so that way we can make the best policies for all of our citizens that we can. And I have a proven track record of doing that, particularly in infrastructure and housing. I think those are two issues that we can really work together on both sides. People need affordable housing, and we need the infrastructure in place to be able to build that affordable housing. Last year, I worked with Congressman Walden and the United States Transportation Department, and we were able to secure the largest federal grant the district's ever seen of $60.4 million to realign Highway 97 at the north end of Bend.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. And we want to thank everyone for joining us this evening on any one of our 8 newspaper websites, as well as Facebook Live.
In fact, right now we have Beth Irish, who is watching via the Bend Bulletin Facebook page. So thanks for tuning in tonight, Beth. We're glad to have you.
Thanks for everyone. It's now time for a quick break. We'll be back in just a minute.
We are local newspapers in print
and online in our websites and news apps.
We protect democracy
by asking the tough questions
and holding those in authority accountable.
We give a voice to the voiceless
and hold government entities to a high standard.
We support the communities that support us.
Encourage economic vitality.
And open up dialogue on important issues.
We make people laugh.
And sometimes make people cry.
And inspire people to get involved.
We introduce you to new people, places, and businesses.
And honor our community's unique history.
We have opinions based on our research.
And we label them as such.
Newspapers are the glue that holds a community together.
Local journalism, locally owned.
We're your neighbors.
And we care about our communities, just like you do.
We are EO Media Group, and we approve this message.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're here with 3 Republican CD2 candidates, Justin Livingston, Jeff Smith, and Travis Fager. Now we're moving on to our 7th question of the evening. Tribal nations within the 2nd District have called for the removal of dams on the Snake River to restore salmon populations, which would need congressional approval. How would you approach this issue? You each have 90 seconds to respond, and in this order: Smith, Livingston, and Fager. So, Mr. Smith.
One of the biggest problems in Congress is special interest groups. People who have more money than you do, they hire lots of lawyers and they send them to Washington, D.C., and they ply the ear of congressmen to give them a really, really good deal. And it's usually at the expense of the common person. Special interests, and this is a great example of a special interest group asking for a special deal for them that would be great, and that would raise everybody else's electricity prices, but that's fine as long as we give them a special interest, a special deal for their special interests. I am opposed to giving special deals to anybody, and I don't care if they're the rich or the poor. We shouldn't be given special interests. We the people of the United States, and we ought to think of what is best for we the people, not somebody who just had enough money to hire a lawyer and come to Washington and spend lots of money, millions of dollars, to try to talk you into something that is a great deal for them. I'm opposed to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Now to Mr. Livingston.
I'm opposed to removing the dams on the Snake River and on the Klamath River, for that fact. The dams on the Snake and the commerce, the clean renewable energy through hydropower, the use for water storage for irrigation, those are all critical pieces that have to be considered as well. Now, we can look at and evaluate the potential for adding fish ladders or for other upgrades to those dams if so warranted. But we can't just start from the position of, and they need to be removed, because there's really no talking to people that have that position, that, you know, they start with that and they're not compromising on other alternatives and the impacts and the economic benefits, the clean renewable energy that all those dams do provide. I absolutely do not support removing those dams for all those reasons. Now, if there's room to find a middle ground to address some of the environmental concerns, definitely willing to look at that. But all the economic and renewable energy definitely need to be taken into consideration when making that decision.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. And now to Mr. Fager.
Yeah, I absolutely would not participate in a U-turn in removing those dams. They are an extremely efficient, effective way to generate electricity. Windmills aren't going to cut it. That's a whole nother discussion. I urge people to do their homework on that. Look, I've stood on the deck of a commercial fishing boat in international fishing waters that aren't far off the coastline of the United States. And I've seen international fisheries, other countries come in literally like a vacuum cleaner and take out every size of fish you can imagine, every species, okay? While American fisheries, commercial fishermen, are limited. They're limited to windows of fisheries, limited to size and amount of catch, so on and so forth. So the fish count issue upstream, you know, there's a lot of factors that go in, and the dams, yeah, great. I know that they cut back on the population. That's an understood. Okay, I'm not going to dispute that. But we can't go back. There's no U-turn in this. We're in a different era, and we need to be wise. We need to be good stewards. And there's a bigger part of this discussion, the culprit of the fish counts, if that's indeed one of the big issues. So again, at the congressional level, we need to act and behave and think like a board of directors of a company. Let's keep this thing solvent. Let's keep this thing productive. Let's keep it efficient. And removing the dams is counter to all of that. So I would reach out, try and work with, come up with other solutions, try and enrich the habitat. Again, I don't want to take out the loggers because I know the loggers aren't responsible for that. Maybe at some point in our history, but logging is done in a way today that's very productive and very efficient and good and decent on the environment as well. So anyway, I would just support common sense and broad enterprise review of this issue before I say, and I would never say take out the dams, never.
Okay. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
Our 8th question is about climate change, which is a topic that a number of people have asked about via email. Do you believe the planet is undergoing man-made climate change? And what, if anything, should the federal government do about it? You each have 90 seconds, and in this order: Livingston, Fager, and Smith. Justin, you're up.
Climate change is happening. There's no doubt about that. The climate has changed and is going to continue to change. Instead of focusing our energies and our money on reducing CO2 emissions, what I really believe that we should be doing is that we should be looking at different ways to adapt. I don't believe that we can actually control CO2 emissions to the degree of which is saying that it's required and still have a viable economy. Look, this is a great time to be looking at the amount of carbon reductions that is actually happening with the essential shutdown of our economy. It's been very impactful to our economy, but yet we're reducing, vehicular travel, at least in the city of Bend, has been reduced by 40–45%. I'm not willing to put the economy at risk to that degree to reduce CO2 emissions to that much. I'm all for finding ways to operate more efficiently and to make government operations efficient and to use our resources that's been given to us as efficiently as possible. We absolutely have the responsibility to be good stewards of all of our natural resources in the environment. And so what I would do is I would actually focus more on adaptation, is how do we adapt to the changing climate and really focus in that area.
Great. Thank you, Justin. Travis Fager.
Hey, the climate's been changing since the dawn of creation, and I don't think humankind has their hand on the thermostat. I really don't agree with that. But I do agree that we've done a fantastic job of polluting. When I've traveled over this country, almost every major city, and I know what it's like to land in LA, and it looks like it's a virtual fog bank of, pollution and so forth. And I like clean air, and I like clean water, and I realize what our pollutants are doing to our bodies and our health and so forth. I don't believe we should punish people with some of the policies that have come out for climate change interaction or addressing the issue are punitive, and I believe there's bad political agenda behind them, because we can come up with creative solutions to deal with climate, our contribution to the climate, because again, I don't think we are changing the climate. I think we're just adding pollutants. So across the board, categorically, I think we can continue to look at that. I think as long as there's constructive solutions that we can explore that don't kill industry. Look, the California Air Research Board, there's policies out there right now. I mean, vehicles right now, I was in the ag industry. Tractors have less parts per million coming out of their exhaust than going in with the new EPA regs that are on industry. So a lot of stuff has been going on, and there's been a lot of advancement. So I would be careful of the narrative that paints us into a corner and does essentially like this COVID thing and really puts us in a place where we're vulnerable because we're overreacting. I think we can do a concerted, practical approach to our contribution to climate without killing ourselves.
Thanks, Travis. Jeff Smith.
So the critical word in that sentence, in that question is, do you believe in man-made climate change? The books that I've read, and I've read several of them, most of the authors seem to be open to the idea that man may be causing some climate change. The question then should be, how much? How much are we causing? And then secondly, how much is actually detrimental? My dad is 99 years old. He's here in the house with me tonight. He remembers the winters they had when he was in the 20s and 30s. He remembers those horrible winters. He's all for a little climate change. The question is how much climate change is actually detrimental? And with the overreaction of like AOC and her Green New Deal, all of that, it would absolutely devastate the economy, punishing Americans to try to achieve some unrealistic goal while China and India can burn as much coal and pollute as much as they want. So America shouldn't foot the bill for climate change. We ought to ask reasonable questions, take reasonable steps, but we should not go overboard on pursuing a unattainable for reducing our carbon output.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Now we'll go to our 9th question of the evening. The 2nd District covers more than 19 counties in Oregon, which is 2/3 of the state's landmass. How have you connected with the people and issues in this vast district, and how do you plan to stay connected if you are elected and sent to Washington, D.C.? You have 90 seconds to respond, and the order is Smith, Fager, and Livingston, and we'll start with Mr. Smith.
2 years ago, I ran for governor, and during the primary, I talked to hundreds, thousands of people. With the current shutdown, I simply was not able to do that. Many people called my office, my campaign office. I talked to as many people over the phone. We have interaction over Facebook. We have done our best to try to reach out and listen to people, but it's just simply been hampered by the normal things that I would have done to run a campaign. I simply have not been able to do. Going ahead, it is very important that people get to voice their opinion and that their representative in Congress listens to their opinion, whether he agrees with it or not. And once again, I'm a good listener. I will take very positive steps to visit each of those counties on a regular basis, so that I will give them, the people, a chance to see me face to face and talk to me and express their concerns and inform me. Just let me know what things are coming up that I may or may not know about that I may need to address. So I will take very positive steps to reach out to the people of the district. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And now we go to Mr. Fager.
It's challenging, of course. I'm a full-time working guy, so, I'm bound by a weekly job. And of course, the shutdown didn't help. I had plans to get out in the district. Because I've been in national sales and distribution, District 2 in Oregon here, I had the privilege to spend a fair amount of time going down to the district and setting up accounts for the industry I was in. So I got to meet a lot of business people, and I've recreated a lot down through the district. So I've built up relationships and connectivity over the years with people throughout District 2. If elected, of course, just keep the lines of communication open. Let people know that their voice is respected. It's definitely, I would want to continue to hear from people. And the reality of it is, you can't take care of every need. But if you can at least respond and let them know, hey, yeah, I'm here. I understand your concern. But people right now, look, there's been a lot of trust has been lost during this process, and especially this season. So what I would want to do is just let the people know, hey, I'm going to do my best to earn your trust. I'm going to do my best to keep your trust and do the best for this district and for this nation. And again, have those open lines of communication, and definitely, hey, it's a big district, and trying to get out to every county as much as possible. Yes, do that. I am a general manager of a radio station. Walden, I think, did a fantastic job and sort of set the example for that. And I'd like to continue to follow that, as he's actually come into our county quite a bit. So anyway, lots of housekeeping to do. And I know people have lots of needs and they have lots to say. So we just keep the lines of communication open and be very respectful and let them know we're listening.
Thank you, Mr. Fager. And now we go to Mr. Livingston.
Well, first off, I want to recognize Congressman Walden. He has set the bar very high for all elected officials for his level of engagement, his communication, and having staff on the ground that really are available to all citizens. When elected, I am committed to maintaining the bar that he has already set. I think there's ways to do that. One, I would like to have my chief of staff be based in the district, continue the offices throughout the district, and then also I make a commitment to getting into all the counties to really hear from people and the issues that they're dealing with, and listen to their solutions. I don't think that solutions should come from Washington, D.C. They need to come from the local level, from the city councils, from the county commissioners, from other elected boards. As far as the campaign, I got in fairly late. I got in just a couple weeks before the filing deadline. We were able to get some momentum initially, and then we had a forum in Klamath Falls. I got to meet a lot of people, and then unfortunately, COVID-19 hit. That changed the ball game for this campaign this year dramatically. We've tried to stay in connection with doing Zoom meetings with the different county central committees, lots of phone calls, emails, social media. We've tried all those ways to really stay in touch with people and really hear what their needs are.
Great. Thank you very much, Justin. We're getting ready to go to another brief commercial break. I want to thank all three of you for your thoughtful responses. And we want to make another mention of those that are watching at home via Facebook and our websites. It looks like we have Shannon Thornton, who is watching on the LeGrand Observer Facebook page. So thank you, Shannon. We're glad that you're tuning in. And we have one more. Who's that?
We get, looks like Jeff Sheffield is watching the Hermiston Herald Facebook page live. So thank you, Jim, for tuning in tonight.
Thank you, Jim. We're going to go ahead and take a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everyone. Once again, I'm Chris Rush here with Corinne Brigiotti, and we are here with three of the Republican candidates for the 2nd Congressional District seat in Congress, Travis Fager, Jeff Smith, and Justin Livingston. We're now going to go to a quick question that has come up in emails and Facebook comments submitted by our viewers. Are you in favor of abolishing the Electoral College? Why or why not? You have just 60 seconds for this one. So the order is Livingston, Fager, and Smith. Mr. Livingston, you have 1 minute.
It's pretty short answer. No, I'm not in favor of banishing the Electoral College. The founders at the time devised a wonderful system because what it does is it makes all states equal and important in the process. If the Electoral College was banned, you would essentially see presidential campaigns focus on the 5 largest cities. And I don't think that the president should be solely decided by the coasts of this country. The Electoral College process was a wonderful conception when it was devised, and it's still applicable today. Oregon would have no standing whatsoever. Nobody would care what Oregon has to do because we have a fairly small population compared to a lot of states. So we need to remain relevant, and the Electoral College is one way to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Mr. Fager.
Preserve the Electoral College. Look, here's what it delivers. It delivers we're in a constitutional republic, okay? So if it went away, the Electoral College, we would have mob rule of the states. We can't have that. A constitutional republic delivers these individual rights and representation. It does it on a macro level with the Electoral College. And, look, people didn't start complaining about it until they were getting election results that they didn't like. And yes, I agree. The forefathers knew way more than we did. They're very intelligent, very versed with tyranny, very versed with the ills of even like a mob rule. So I would preserve that. And I'd question anybody who's trying to push it because it's a political agenda, because they're not getting the outcomes they want. So again, I would support the Electoral College. And look, other thing too, people need to become literate. We have a lot of illiteracy out there on what it takes to have a country, a constitutional republic, and enjoy your liberties. So the more illiterate we become in this area, the more likely we are to lose it. So educate yourselves. The Electoral College is important. Do your own homework and find out why. And I'm telling you, it ensures equal representation.
Thank you, Mr. Fager. And now we go to Mr. Smith.
Am I in favor of doing away with the Electoral College? And so the natural question is, replace it with what? With a popular vote? If we replace it with a popular vote, then New York and California will carry the whole country. It is as simple as that. So no, I am not in favor of doing away with the Electoral College. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Jeff. We also have a question that's been submitted by email from David and Alice Drescher of Sun River. If you were elected to represent the 2nd District, are you willing to represent all of the people in your district, whether you agree with them politically or not? Please respond in 60 seconds. The order will be Smith, Livingston, and Fager. Jeff Smith, you're up.
I have yet to meet somebody who I cannot learn something from. I can learn something from anybody. Unfortunately, some of those people, what you want to learn is things not to do. But one thing that I can promise the people of our district is that I will listen to them. I will come to understand what they are trying to tell me, why they're trying to tell me that. So my promise to them is that not that I will necessarily agree or adopt their position, but I will try hard to understand their position. So I offer my listening skills.
Thank you, Jeff. Justin, you're next.
No, I think it's imperative for everybody, whoever ends up winning this seat, to be a true representative for all the district. And to know it's not just in policy, but also through constituent services. Government's not an easy thing to interact with. And I have a proven track record on the council of really helping people interact with their government. And to me, that is one of the key aspects of of a representative, is to represent you in Washington, D.C. to access, whether it's your VA benefits, interacting with the Social Security Administration, the myriad of different government agencies, but really to be your advocate, regardless of policy issues or differences, to be your advocate in Washington, D.C. to make sure that you're able to interact with your government and do it well and get the answers that you need.
Great, thank you, Justin. Travis Fager, can you tie this one up for us?
End of the day, you're an American citizen and you deserve representation, and you deserve somebody who's looking out for you. Look, I love God, I love country, and I love people. And, again, if we don't have the same political opinions, that doesn't matter. I'm going to stand up for your constitutional rights. I'm going to make sure the country you're living in is fiscally solvent, that it's strategically solvent, that it's situationally, circumstantially, that you're being looked out for, being a good steward. Again, I think it's like being on the board of directors. And I answer to you, and I want to serve you. And yeah, we may not agree, but at the end of the day, I want what's best for you, and I want what's best for all of District 2 to move the needle for a net benefit now and into the future. So we're not going to agree on every nuance, but that's not going to change the fact that I'm going to fight for your constitutional rights.
Thank you. And we have a little bit of extra time, so we're going to take another question from one of our audience members. And the question is this: what changes, if any, would you propose in how public lands are managed by the federal government? Sorry, we only have 90 seconds each on this one, but we'll start with Mr. Livingston, Smith, and Fager. So Mr. Livingston, please.
The federal government owns the vast majority of the land in the district, whether that's through BLM or Forest Service or others. And oftentimes it's not a good neighbor. It doesn't take care of its land the way it should. And so those policies that I talked about earlier about really getting people back to work in the woods, addressing our wildfire issues and being good stewards of the public land is absolutely imperative, and we need to do that. I think there are possibilities to look at getting the federal lands back into the control of the counties, and so that way they can be driven, policies can be driven for those lands based on what the people in the counties want. I think that's a viable option to look at. Don't know all the details yet, but I think it's something worth pursuing.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. And now to Mr. Smith.
When I graduated high school in 1981, you a log cutter for years. There were people who had of resources in the counties that were going towards making homes, paying for education, because when the timber was logged in a county, that county would receive part of those proceeds. Back then, we were actually using the national forests. We need to get back to that. And the only way that we're going to get back to that is if we actually repeal the Endangered Species Act. That is the part that has changed, and it has taken away a way of life that many in Eastern Oregon would have loved to have. I'm all for giving people back the freedom to create whatever life they want to create for themselves. We need to repeal the Endangered Species Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And now we go to Mr. Fager.
Yeah, of course. Again, hey, good answers from both those guys. We're long overdue for some healthy grooming of the forests, and we need to improve access. It's a renewable resource, and we need to fully maximize the utility of these public lands because they're owned by the public. And right now, look, our infrastructure is suffering. It's always a money problem. And if we can be good stewards and productively and efficiently and safely get out there, take advantage of the resources, don't let it burn up every year, and put people to work and put those revenues back into, the infrastructure, improve the roads, put money into the schools, so on and so forth. So I definitely work to increase access. I definitely work to increase utilization, that it's not detrimental. And I think we have the technology and the policies in place. I agree with Jeff. We got to get rid of these old Endangered Species Acts that they had a political agenda behind them. And again, use common sense. So it's the people's land. Let's put it to work for the people. How about that for a concept?
Thank you, Travis. We appreciate you guys addressing that submitted question. We're also seeing questions submitted via email and Facebook about a lot of other issues, including Second Amendment, immigration, the judicial nomination process, and Endangered Species Act. Clearly, these are issues that the 2nd District voters care about. So we hope that the candidates will address these issues on their campaign websites and their social media platforms.
We're just about out of time now, so we'll move to closing statements with the Republican candidates for the 2nd Congressional District seat in the U.S. Congress.
And just a reminder to everyone that Election Day is May 19th. Ballots were mailed out starting on April 29th, so you'll be receiving yours in the mail soon if you haven't already gotten it. Oregon is a vote by mail state, so the coronavirus pandemic will not prevent registered voters from casting their ballots.
That's right. Oregon won't be facing the same challenges that many other states who require in-person voting are having during this COVID-19 process. So for your closing statement, please tell viewers why they should vote for you in the May 19th primary election. Your time limit is just 60 seconds, please. And the order is Livingston, Smith, and Fager. Mr. Livingston, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Based on what we've heard tonight in this forum and then what will likely be heard in the next forum, I think it'll be evident that I'm the most conservative candidate and the best person to fill the shoes of Congressman Walden. When elected to represent you in Washington, D.C., I will focus on rebuilding our economy with pro-growth policies, reducing regulations, improving forest management, protecting and advancing our Second Amendment rights by advocating for nationwide concealed carry reciprocity, serving our veterans and active duty military, supporting and expanding the mission at Kingsley Field, and protecting the lives and rights of the unborn. Again, thank you to everybody involved in putting together this forum. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I ask you for your vote on May 19th. To find out more about me, please visit livingstonforcongress.com.
Now we go to Mr. Smith.
My name is Jeff Smith. I ask you for my vote. You can go see my political positions on virtually all of the things that we have talked about tonight. One of the things that I want to let you know is that I support Donald Trump. I'm going to stand firm on moral issues. I'm going to protect our Second Amendment rights. I'm going to be the person who is best standing up to reinvent the middle class in Eastern Oregon. I'm going to pursue policies that will reduce your healthcare costs. You can check out more at www.sendjeff2congress.com, www.sendjeff2congress.com, and I ask you for your vote. I promise you that I will go and I will try to do the things that I have stated in my voter's pamphlet, and that is my promise to you, that every day I'll go to Congress and try to do things that are good for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And now we go to Mr. Fager.
Thanks everybody for listening in tonight, taking time. Again, this constitutional republic, this liberty experience we have, it's not a spectator sport. And I'm thankful for people who have so far interacted with me and participated in this event. And going forward, look, I realize serving at this level, it's a humbling opportunity. America is a phenomenal nation. There's nothing like it ever in the history of mankind, the platform of freedom, to be able to govern ourselves, to show self-discipline and enjoy the freedoms and the creativity that this country affords. And I believe we're at a critical window right now. We do need a course correction. There's some that say they want to fundamentally alter this nation. I want to see it fundamentally restored. That's where my heart is. My heart is for the people and for the nation, and I hope that comes through. So again, we need that course correction. We need to change the trajectory towards liberty, not away from it. We need to come back to our core values: hard work, self-discipline, honoring the sanctity of life at both ends of the spectrum. I'm pro Second Amendment. I'm pro America. I'm supportive of Trump, and I ask for your vote. Travis Fager. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Travis. I want to thank all three of you for participating in tonight's forum: Jeff Smith, Justin Livingston, and Travis Fager. We appreciate that you guys were willing to be with us tonight. Tonight's forum has been hosted by the EO Media Group and EO Alive TV. A very special thanks to CHI St. Anthony Hospital of Pendleton and PacWest Communications for their generous support of tonight's forums. We especially want to recognize the producers for these events, Catherine Brown and Brent Clapp, and the entire crew of Brent Clapp Productions, Director Sean Holliday, and Assistant Director Bennett Welch, and all of those behind the scenes. Please join us again tonight at 7 p.m. to hear from 4 more of the Republican candidates for the CD2 seat. You will also be able to view a video of these recordings and all 3 of the forums on your newspaper's website, on your newspaper's Facebook page under videos, or online at eoalive.tv.
Thank you. Good night.